Hello everyone, it's the Drunken Warlock here. So today is more of a how-to. I don't know if this has been a problem for many people, but ever since I switched from the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One, it seemed like every 5 minutes someone was complaining about an echo. I am currently using the Turtlebeach with the Talkback cable. So it has a 2.5 millimeter to a 2.5 millimeter connection that goes to the Xbox One headset or controller. So when these complaints would happen, all I had to do was move or twist the wire and it would go back to normal for another 5 minutes. I don't know if it's the movement, if it's swaying and it goes back to a position where it doesn't like it. So I tried a few different things like switching out wires or getting a new converter. None of them lasted for longer than 20 minutes. A few days ago, I decided it was time to resolve the issue the manual way and fix it for good. So this is going to be a simple tutorial how-to. All you would need is the following items: a soldering iron, core solder, 3.5 millimeter 4-post cable. A 3-post cable will not work. It needs the 4-post to go into the Xbox One controller. You need some wire strippers and electrical tape. So I began by cutting off the end of the chat back cable from my Turtle Beaches, and I stripped the wires as you can see in the picture, and then I cut the provided adapter wire that came with the uh, Microsoft Chat accessory. I cut that a little bit less than half, as you can see in the picture. It's just little stubs so that I can get the wires, and then I traced them back to figure out which posts go to what part. Then I was able to rehook the wires up by, you know, cutting them and twisting them. So if you just follow the layout in this picture, we'll move on to the next. On the wire with the 4-post, you'll notice four wires in total: a blue, a white, a black, and the sheathing wire, which has nothing around it to protect itself. It's just loose frayed wires. And on the chatback cable, there's only three. You have a red, a white, and the sheathing wire, which is a ground. When I traced the lines back, the white went to white, the red went with the blue, the black went with both sheathing wires. So you strip the black, and the wires that are not encased in anything, you attach them all together and you solder them down. For me, I find that if you are to twist the wires together that you need, and then you take the solder and you kind of hold the soldering iron above the twisted wire, so at the top tip of it, and you let it drip down. Once the wire has a coating of solder, then I'll heat the wire up to get it in between the strands to make it a solid connection. Here's a quick example of how I did this in a larger scale, since I did not get any video recording of the actual soldering part. So I start off by twisting the wire, as you can see here, so that it is a joined connection. The fibers of the wire are interlaced with each other. Makes it easier for soldering. So as you can see here, I'm using the soldering iron and I am melting the solder on top of the wire itself so I can get an accumulation of solder. The wire should act kind of like a towel and water. That's how you want to think of it. You want to get the water on top of the item, which would be the solder on top of the wire. And you'll notice a droplet come around here, and I will kind of go up and down the wire itself that's exposed. What that does is that heats up the wire and the solder and makes the wire absorb it. And as you can see, we now have a solid piece of wire. The video isn't exactly the best quality. I'm using an iPhone 6 to, or sorry, an iPhone 5 to record this. Do a little tug test. I wouldn't do that with the smaller wires just because they are very frail and they can snap easier. Here's how I bent the wire so that it would go straight. I kind of did a little S joint there, and at the S joint I used the electrical tape to tightly wrap it. Electrical tape is very stretchy, so just give it a good stretch and wrap it up. So once you have everything soldered, you want to make sure that you haven't accidentally soldered any of the other wires to each other. So you don't want the ground wires soldered to the white wires. You don't want the ground wires soldered to the red and blue wires. So this is an after the fact example. So I'm using another speaker wire that I had just to demonstrate how I did this. So I'll bend down the ground wires, which is the ones without the sheath. I didn't need to strip them or anything. I'm going to bend that to the main wire itself, and then I'm going to very tightly wrap the electrical tape around so that it gives a lower profile. And the tight wrap, since it stretches a lot, it gives it very little movement. You don't want the electrical tape to move around much. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move down. I'm going to bend down the other set of wires. In this example, it's the black set of wires. And then I'm going to tape it again very tightly to the rest of the electrical tape. Give it a nice little tight end. Then we switch over to the next set. So the wires aren't split like this. It's one wire on the Xbox headset. So, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to work with, but it's the same concept. So again, I'm going to put the ground wire down. I'm going to go ahead and tightly wrap it. Then I'm going to take the white wire and I'm going to move that down, bend it over onto the electrical tape, and I wrap it again very tightly. So now I put the two wires together and I wrap it even tighter. So this ensures each wire is separated from each other and also separated from being exposed to the outside elements. Now how I did the S-bend, again as an example, so I'm going to start at the very tip of the electrical tape because that's where it's most compact at this point. And as I get further, I'm gonna stretch it along the wire so that it gets compact throughout. And it's a very strong tape job. As you can see here, it's now one straight piece of wire, even though it's just a little bit thicker as before. And it's strong. Again, with the smaller wire, I would not test out the strength, just because those cables are so small. You also have the option of using Sugru, which is definitely a great option. Once you know that everything's good and you want to set it in stone, go down to Target, grab yourself some Sugru, Sugru. It is a putty substance that once you have taken it out of the package and molded it to a product, it will harden into a silicone base, which will grab a hold of the wire itself and keep it in its place. I have used it many of times, especially for my Turtle Beaches. They're a $250 set of Modern Warfare 3 Turtle Beaches, which I'll show you a picture of that here. And they have definitely saved them. Since this is a do-it-yourself that involves soldering wires, voltage, you know, solder has a lot of heat, other issues can occur, you could cut the wrong thing. I just want to say that this is a do-it-your-own risk. Please, start this off by knowing what you're doing at least. And you should be fine. So, please leave a like if you like, and subscribe if you want to subscribe. And remember, don't drive drunk.